Hello, I'm John Meacham. Welcome to my church, St. Thomas Episcopal Church on Fifth Avenue in New York City. It's been 100 years since the laying of the cornerstone for this iconic building, the most successful project of the early 20th century architectural team of Ralph Adams, Cram, and Bertram Grosvenor Goodhue. "Thou art the King of glory, O Christ," is inscribed over the front doors, and the sentiment inspired by those words is manifested throughout the building. We began as a parish church, but St. Thomas has become a church for the city and for the world. More than 300,000 visitors pass through our doors every year, in addition to those who attend services. Every one of our services is streamed live on our website, followed by listeners around the world. But we are facing an enormous challenge, actually a $5 million challenge. Part of the church's striking design is an array of 33 stained glass windows. Several years ago, we hired a conservator to examine the state of these windows. Her report was more than unforgiving. Time and weather had so battered the windows that some were ready to fall out of their frames, and all were in need of stabilization. Around the same time, in 2004, we hired two experts in pipe organs to examine our great organ, initially built and installed in 1913 by Ernest Skinner, one of America's greatest organ builders. Skinner collaborated closely on the project with T. Tertius Noble, the founder of our renowned choir school. The resulting instrument was well suited to support the singing of liturgical services in the Anglican tradition of the Episcopal Church. Skinner considered the organ among his best creations, and Dr. Noble delighted in the way it complemented the choir. There are a lot of urban myths about the great organ, one of them being that Skinner's masterpiece must be maintained at any cost. But like so many myths, this one isn't true. In 1956, over Skinner's strenuous objections, the great organ was rebuilt. Thousands of new pipes visible above the choir stalls were added, and the tone was made intense and fiery. After a leak of rainwater into the organ in 1966, another extensive rebuild occurred. The result was an instrument even more vibrant in tone, but less flexible, unsuited to supporting the Anglican choral liturgy, and even further from what Dr. Skinner and Dr. Noble originally built for the church. Independently, our two organ experts came to the same conclusion. The great organ has reached the end of its useful life and should be replaced. Our organ curator, Larry Trupiano, has done a fantastic job keeping parts of the organ working through constant patchwork repairs. To continue that approach, though, is ultimately a waste of money. At the same time, the experts agreed with our music director, John Scott, that after two complete rebuilds, the current organ is no longer voiced to complement the choir. Faced with the extraordinary demands of both windows and organ, St. Thomas embarked on its first capital campaign in 75 years, raising $10.3 million from the congregation before the parish resources were exhausted. With these funds, it was possible to stabilize 12 of the most severely affected stained glass windows. After considerable research, the vestry directed Dobson Pipe Organ Builders of Iowa to design a new organ for the church. The intention was to save what little remains of Ernest Skinner's original and incorporate those elements into a new organ built to do justice to this church's music program. Once begun, the project will cost $8 million and take about 3 years to complete. Therefore, we have to raise $5 million from generous donors outside of our parish to avoid the imminent failure of the great organ. That terrible blow, should it happen, would fall first and foremost on the St. Thomas Choir of men and boys. This world-famous choir forms the core of St. Thomas's celebrated music program. The choir sings a minimum of 6 liturgical services a week. They prepare and perform about 400 settings of evensong, Holy Communion, and other services every year, as well as an annual series of non-liturgical concerts. More than 3,000 people paid admission to the choir's presentation of Messiah last Christmas, one of the annual stellar attractions of New York's holiday season. St. Thomas's Choir School is both a professional music school and a private, fully accredited educational establishment for 40 boys in grades 3 through 8. Founded in 1919 by Dr. Noble, who came to us from York Minster in England, the school was modeled on British choir schools. Henry Purcell, who was a boy chorister in the Westminster Abbey Choir, would be familiar with the model. Our school is the only church-affiliated boarding choir school in the United States, and one of a handful remaining in the world today. A great choir needs a great organ, the instrumental counterpart in a dynamic musical team. So we are grappling with this dilemma. Our great organ is at the end of its life and must be replaced before it simply falls silent. The only reason it works at all is due to the weekly labors of Mr. Trupiano and the skills of our organists working around the organ's many limitations. Besides, we don't want to patch up an indifferent instrument. We want to seize this opportunity to build an organ that's reliable and inspiring, the equivalent of this grand church and this great choir. Our parishioners have done their best, but we need $5 million in hand to commence building and installing a replacement. St. Thomas routinely contributes to others who are in need, among them the victims of Hurricane Katrina and the earthquake in New Zealand. Now we're asking for help. We believe the music offered here, like the music of Bach, transcends all boundaries and enriches the cultural life of New York far beyond our church community. Please help us if you can, and pray that we are successful.